Imagine this. A king held captive is forced to trade half his realm for his freedom. It sounds like something out of a dark fantasy, but this is real history. In 1359, King Jean II of France faced a choice no ruler should ever have to make. He had to give away vast swaths of his kingdom to the English king, Edward III, to secure his release. This decision set off a chain of events that would shape the future of both France and England in ways no one could have predicted. King Jean had been captured by the English at the Battle of Poitiers in 1356, a crushing defeat that left France in disarray. The Dauphin, who was essentially the heir to the throne, had to step up in his father's absence. The country was in a state of chaos, with rival factions vying for power and the common people suffering under heavy taxes and lawlessness. The situation was so dire that the people of Paris, led by a man named Étienne Marcel, rose up in rebellion, demanding reforms and a more just government. Marcel's movement, though initially promising, ended in bloodshed when he was killed by his own supporters. The death of Marcel marked the end of a brief moment of hope for a good government. The people of France, despite their dissatisfaction with the current state of affairs, were not ready to challenge the monarchy. They blamed the kingdom's problems on corrupt advisors and greedy nobles, not on the king himself. The political movement that had begun with Marcel's rebellion fizzled out, and the crown regained its grip on power. Meanwhile, the regent, who was temporarily in charge of Paris, faced a formidable enemy in Charles of Navarre. Charles, a cousin of the French king, had formed an alliance with the English and was openly defying the regent. The countryside was rife with conflict, with local battles and raids breaking out all over. The situation was so volatile that even the young Sire de Coucy, a powerful lord, had to fortify his castle and territory to protect his lands from the chaos. Despite the turmoil, the regent issued a general amnesty in August 1359, hoping to quell the unrest and encourage the nobles and peasants to work together to bring in the harvest. The regent's efforts to stabilize the situation were crucial, but the damage had already been done. The extermination of the Jacques, a peasant revolt that had been brutally suppressed, left a deep scar on the French countryside. The land was ravaged, and the people were hungry and desperate. While the regent struggled to maintain order in France, King Edward III of England was preparing for a final, decisive campaign. He had assembled a massive force, including 11,000 men, 3,000 horses, and an enormous baggage train. Edward was determined to claim the French crown and cement his victory. He set his sights on Reims, the traditional site of French coronations, where he intended to be crowned King of France. The English army, despite its size and strength, faced numerous challenges. The French countryside had been stripped of provisions, making it difficult for the invaders to sustain themselves. The French, under the guidance of the regent, had adopted a new strategy: avoid direct confrontation and use fortified towns and castles to resist the English. This approach, born out of necessity and previous defeats, proved effective in frustrating Edward's plans. When Edward arrived at Reims, he found the city well prepared and unwilling to open its gates. The English laid siege to the city, but after 40 days, they were forced to retreat due to a lack of supplies and the harsh winter conditions. Edward then turned his attention to Burgundy, where he plundered and destroyed for 2 months until he was bought off by the Duke of Burgundy, Philip de Rouvre, for a substantial sum of money. Edward's campaign, though initially promising, ultimately failed to achieve its goals. The French had devised a strategy that neutralized the English threat, and the people of France, despite their hardships, remained resilient. However, the conflict between France and England was far from over. The French, determined to rescue their captive king, launched a daring raid on the English coast in March 1360. The raid, led by a brave but inexperienced commander, Enguerrand Ringois, was initially successful, but it ultimately accomplished little beyond provoking Edward's wrath. The raid on Winchelsea, a town on the south coast of England, was a bold attempt to free King Jean and intimidate the English into withdrawing their forces from France. The French seized the town, committed acts of violence, and then retreated before the English could mount a significant response. The raid left England in a state of panic, but it also hardened Edward's resolve to punish the French. In the end, the Treaty of Brétigny, signed in 1360, brought a temporary end to the conflict. King Jean was released, and Edward received a large ransom and control over significant territories in France. However, the treaty was far from a definitive resolution, and the 100 Years' War would continue to rage for many more years. The events of this period highlight the complex and often brutal nature of medieval warfare. They show how the actions of a few powerful individuals can have far-reaching consequences for entire nations. The struggle for power, the quest for justice, and the resilience of ordinary people all played a role in shaping the course of history. Despite the chaos and violence, the people of France and England continued to fight for their futures, and their stories remind us of the enduring human spirit.